The regular meeting of the Capital Long Range Improvements Committee will now begin.
Good evening. My name is Jeffrey Strand. I'm the chair of the Capital Long Range Improvements Committee. Before we begin, I'd like to note that this meeting includes the remote participation of members as authorized under Minnesota Statute Section 13D.021 due to the declared local health pandemic. I will now call this meeting to order and ask the clerk to call a roll so that we may verify the presence of a quorum. This is the public input session for May 6, 2021.
Thorbjorn Adam.
Present.
Zachariah Aiden. Zach Aiden. Jocelyn Beard.
Present.
John Bernstein. John Bernstein. Steve Brandt.
Here.
James Brown. James Brown. Luke Cunningham.
Present.
Sonia DeGarmo.
Present.
Scott Engel. Scott Engel. Amity Foster.
Present.
Kai Goodnestead. William Gullickson. William Gullickson. Risa Hustad.
Present.
Katie Jones. Katie Jones. Matt Kazinka. Matt Kazinka.
Here.
Was that you, Matt? Richard LaRoe.
I'm here. Sorry.
Erica Mouter.
Here.
Dan McConnell. Dan McConnell. Jake McCormick.
Here.
Dan Miller.
Here.
George Montague.
Here.
Toso.
Here.
Todd Schumann. Todd Schumann. Rick Wan.
Present.
Vice Chair Willie Bridges.
Present.
Chair Jeff Strand.
Present.
With that, there's 17 members present.
Thank you, clerk. And I'll note that member Scott Engel indicated that he had a work conflict, could not attend due to a work conflict. If we have a committee member who has the volume on with some other outside broadcast, could they please mute? Thank you. So we have the next items. I will combine the adoption of the agenda as proposed. And so also the meeting minutes. So thank you. With that, we'll proceed to our agenda, a copy of which was posted for public access to the city's legislative information management system, which is available at lims.minneapolismn.gov. So the proposed agenda for the May 6, 2021 meeting, public input session, and then adoption of the April 30, 2021 meeting minutes take as one item. And if there's a motion and a second, would the member please indicate their name when making the motion and second?
Willie Bridges, second.
Okay, and why don't we take that as a motion? I didn't hear a motion. So
Yeah.
Willie Bridges as a motion. Is there a second?
Second, Dan Miller.
Dan Miller seconded. Any discussion? Seeing no hands raised, we'll take the roll on adoption of the agenda and acceptance of the minutes.
Thorbjorn Adam,
Aye.
Zachariah Aiden. Zachariah Aiden. Jocelyn Beard.
Aye.
John Bernstein. John Bernstein. Steve Brandt.
Aye.
James Brown. James Brown. Luke Cunningham.
Aye.
Sonia DeGarmo.
Aye.
Ed Engel. Who is absent? Amity Foster.
Aye.
Kai Goodmestead. Kai Goodmestead. William Gullickson. William Gullickson. Risa Hustad.
Aye.
Katie Jones. Katie Jones. Matt Kazinka.
Aye.
Richard LaRoe. Richard LaRoe. Erica Mounter.
Aye.
Dan McConnell. Dan McConnell. Jake McCormick.
Aye.
Dan Miller.
Aye.
George Montague. George Montague.
Aye. I'm sorry, aye.
Beth Toso.
Aye.
Todd Schumann. Todd Schumann. Eric Wan.
Aye.
Vice Chair Willie Bridges.
Aye.
Chair Jeff Strand.
Aye.
With that, we have 16 ayes.
With that, the motion is approved. We'll move on to the next item, which is the identified as public hearing. So public input session on the 2022 through 2027 capital budget requests. So as background for the residents participating, proposals to build and renovate streets, buildings, bridges, park facilities, and other parts of the infrastructure in Minneapolis over the next 6 years are collected and prioritized every year. This committee, the Capital Long Range Improvements Committee, or CLIC, reviews all the capital budget requests submitted by city departments and independent boards and makes recommendations to the mayor and city council. CLIC was established circa 1956 and has 33 members, 2 members appointed by each council member and 7 members appointed by the mayor. So at this point, CLIC wants to hear from you about your infrastructure priorities. And this is an opportunity to share those thoughts. Previous meetings with the public have helped generate new ideas about improvements that had never been proposed before, such as adding sidewalks where they hadn't existed in the public system. So we'll begin the public hearing shortly. I want to make sure that the public participating is also aware that there is a joint public hearing between CLIC and the Planning Commission Committee of the Whole that will be scheduled at 6 p.m. on Wednesday, May 12, 2021. And so that is an official joint public hearing. And the meeting will be held virtually on Microsoft Teams, and call-in information will be posted approximately 1 week prior to the meeting. And there's a long link that I can't read. Perhaps staff could post that or post it somewhere for the public. So with that, we will open the public input session or public hearing as it's identified. And the cue that I have from people who identified themselves, resident Gail Bonneville. Would you give your name and your either residence or your neighborhood?
Can you hear me now?
Yes.
Can you hear me now? This is Gail Bonneville.
Yes, Gail, you're coming through fine.
Okay, great. My name is Gail Bonneville. I live in the Waite Park neighborhood in northeast Minneapolis. I am here to comment on and inquire about TV 157, which is the 33rd Avenue Northeast roadway resurfacing project. I'm hoping you received my PDF that I sent last night, early this morning, as well as a link to photos. So I'm not sure if you've received that or had a chance to read it. I can go through the points in it if that would be applicable at this time.
Yes, please do.
Okay, it sounds like you didn't get the email or the photos, but this is a project that is long overdue. It was originally slated to be redone in 2016, 2017 with the rest of the Waite Park concrete streets, which were completed. So these are concrete streets. This stretch of 33rd Avenue Northeast goes from Central to Stinson in your documentation, but I thought earlier it was only slated for Central to Johnson, which probably would be more appropriate at this time because that's the worst by far section. It was removed from the 2016-17 project very abruptly after we were told it was going to be in because city staff had stated that the road was too far gone to be included in what was going to go on in the rest of the Waite Park area. So it would be tackled later. We presume this meant a year or two, but we are now 5 years beyond that, and you've got it slated for another 6 years down the road, so 11 years of a delay on this project, and it certainly has not gotten any better over 11 years. These are concrete streets that had a 40-year lifetime expectancy, so that puts this one at 60 years into its 40 years lifespan, and it is not only just, we're not talking just ordinary pothole type of damage here, it is truly deteriorated to the point where it's dangerous to all modes of transportation, people using all modes of transportation here. It's truly kind of a blighted and embarrassment to the city as well as dangerous. It's now picking up pebble or rocks of some sort out of the potholes and spewing them onto the sides of the road, in the road, on the sidewalk, in the boulevards, etc., which I think is dangerous. So since you can't see my photos, which I think are really telling, I want to try to explain that we're talking, city staff said this is 60-foot wide roadway. When I say there's deterioration, I mean curb to curb. I don't mean a pothole or a hole just here or there. So it's the width of each block, and there are 7 to 10 of these sections that are deteriorating on each block. And they're anywhere from a foot to 4 feet in width or height, I guess you would call it. So they're 60 feet wide by 1 to 4 feet. So we're talking some substantial damage here, and it would just take a quick look or ride up the road to realize that this is nearly impassable at certain times of the year. Right now, it looks like there were some concrete patches put on some areas closer to Central as part of the other adjacent roads being done as sort of patches at the intersection, but there's much more that needs to be done here. I have to avoid it these days. For probably the past year, I have tried to find alternate routes so I don't have to ride on this road or be on this road, because it sounds and feels like it's going to be damaging to the vehicles, and I hate to think what a bike rider would think of it. Some of the areas even look like washouts in there, and it just keeps being patched upon patch upon patch, asphalt patches on concrete, so they last maybe a year, and it's frequently come up at our neighborhood meetings as a priority to be fixed, and I think people are very concerned and confused about why this is set back now 11 years. So the patches don't hold. You've also got it listed, as I noted, for a 1 mile stretch central to Stinson. I think it might be more cost effective if that's an issue to half this and do the central to Johnson stretch, which is in much worse condition than the Johnson to Stinson stretch. Ideally, if it would all be done, but it's definitely more damaged and deteriorating on the Johnson to Central stretch. It's a steep grade on this hill all the way up to Johnson, so it is probably not one of the more popular bike routes for anybody. And I see that your project listed as a Sidewalk, Boulevard, Tree Bike Facility project now, so much more grandiose than we were talking about back in 2016. And again, some of the ADA ramp improvements have already been made. And like I said, don't know that it's a real popular bike route due to the steepness of the grade. But as far as travel, it is one of the few roads in this area that goes straight through Central all the way over to the city border, aside from 29th Avenue, which is also slated to be redone because it's in bad shape, and then 37th, which is also slated to be redone because it's in bad shape. And that also is kind of a break in the neighborhood because of the railroad tracks that go through there, so it's not always convenient or workable to even get up to 37th and use 37th because you would be blocked by the trains. Sometimes they are sitting in place as well as moving these unit trains of 100 cars or more because it's near Shoreham Yards. So
Thank
I
you.
would advise just concentrating on the road itself. The boulevards and the trees and the sidewalks look like they're in relatively good shape.
Thank you, Ms. Bonneville. It appears that, so you are Ward 1, is this not?
Yes, it is Ward 1. And
Yeah.
also, I'm wondering why you didn't get my email, because it does have more information about how this actually does not coincide with the city's 2040 comprehensive plan, environmental justice, or its equity goals.
Well,
And
let's
I
check.
have more in my email that was about that as
Okay.
well. We've got this ranked 61 out of 62, and even parklets were a higher priority. So I'm questioning some of the prioritization done by the city on this as well.
So we will, let's get, first of all, I know that Steve Brandt has his hand raised, and then Robert Harrison with the city. Perhaps Robert has a technical response regarding your communication, and then we'll do Steve, who's been patiently waiting to make a comment, and then we probably should have the Ward 1 representative speak to it as well.
Yeah, so this is Robert from the city. I do just want to affirm, Gail, we do have your email. I'm sorry about the hiccup. We have been monitoring our click email, but I think that one slipped through the cracks, and we can certainly circulate it so folks have access to it. Just very briefly here, we were able to bring up a series of photos presented in the email of the conditions on the infrastructure up for click members and members of the public to view as well, to the extent that they have access to the video that we've got here. So we do have that information, and we'll be sharing it out. Thank you again.
Thank you, Robert. Steve Brandt.
I would, I know that one of the things that stood out to me when I was reviewing the proposed capital program this year was that 3 streets within 8 blocks of each other, 37th, 33rd, and 29th, were all scheduled for reconstruction in the 6-year capital program. The quickest one, the soonest one is 37th. That's been on our list for a while. And 33rd is the farthest out. If you were to base it on importance to the neighborhood, amount of traffic, and condition, which of those 3 would you give priority to?
You're asking me?
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
I would say 33rd. I've driven on 37th, and I've driven on 29th quite a bit as well, all 3 of these. I think 33rd is in the most damaged and deteriorated condition. It may not have as high traffic volume as the other 2, but I think the other 2 seem a little bit more serviceable. 37th is pretty bad and takes a lot more traffic. 29th isn't remarkable in my mind, I guess, but and like I say, 37th is inaccessible in a way. If you look at where the railroad tracks and the rail yard are, you can't always depend on getting to or from the neighborhood going that direction and north on Central or north on Johnson either. You could be blocked. So you would go around and you would be using 33rd. So it's a more accessible road.
Thank you. I have been blocked at 37th on Central, so I know what you mean.
Very good. Let's see if either Ward 1 member, maybe Dan Miller, is free to comment. Sorry, Dan, to put you on the spot. If do you have a response or?
I can do a response, but I would like to just pass it over to Jake, the other Ward 1, Jake McCormick, the other Ward 1 representative. And if he has nothing to say, I'll follow him, or I'll follow him. If I'd like just to let him lead, if it's possible.
It's 6 o'clock.
Sure. So I actually, it's interesting you bring up the bike issues. I biked on 29th down to Central for a while, and I would actually say 33 for sure has more issues than 29th at least. 37 is pretty hard to do too, but I actually think you do bring up a good point in the sense that a lot of the streets in this area, or at least between 29th and 37th, have a lot of those long-term potholes that, actually on 29th going down the hill there past Johnson, those have been filled before, but from my experience, it took a little bit before we got to that point. I actually would agree with you that 33rd is a street that, while it's not heavily trafficked from a commercial perspective, it is definitely one that in area where there are a lot of kind of growing issues from a pothole perspective, and bigger than that. I do think it's actually an area that does deserve some sooner attention rather than later, just from a safety perspective too.
Thank you. All right. Dan, comment? Otherwise, we'll see if Ms. Bonneville has anything further, and then we should move on to the next resident.
I think it's worth reviewing this with, I'm on the transportation subcommittee, and I'd be willing to prepare a comment, a click comment, specifically perhaps about the previous asphalt repaving and the length of time between that and when this construction is planned. And to Ms. Bonneville, this just came onto the click schedule last year, and I do not have it in front of me, but I know with projects that have had MSA funding, both, well, I know 29th Avenue was delayed 2 years. I'm unclear about 33rd, and I'll have to go back and take a look at that. But I'll be interested in looking at your notes and see if I can get an appropriate comment put together, and see if the group can, if it can help to score this project higher. Yeah. Thank you.
Thanks, Dan. So, Ms. Bonneville, anything further, or we're going to move on to the next resident? Thank you for
thank you very much for the consideration and your time.
Yeah, thank you. Then we'll next go to Chris Lindy. And if you would just state your name again. Hello? And then your residence or your neighborhood, please.
Excellent. Hello, everybody.
Good evening.
So you can hear me?
We can.
Yes, we can hear you.
Excellent. So let me start over. Hello, everybody. My name is Chris Lindy. I live in the St. Anthony West neighborhood, And I'm also on a small group of people that's working on the Great Northern Greenway, which is a combination of viewing two city projects, the 18th Avenue Trail Northeast and the 26th Avenue Trail in North, to be seeing that as one continuous project. So I am here to comment on BP 006. I'm glad to see that this is up for construction sooner than later. It's all, for me, with city projects, it seems to be that to fill important gaps is really important to existing trails, because a trail that's not continuous is not really usable for the whole thing. And if you're on a bike, it's much easier to keep going forward than turning. So with this project, it's really nice to see, because I think this is a crucial gap as it connects not only the 18th Avenue Trail, but it also connects to the East Bank Trail right there on, which also terminus is right there on 18th and Marshall. Also, it's also nice to see that the 18th Avenue Trail would actually start on 18th Avenue now, or thereabouts, rather than 16th Avenue, which is always kind of confusing to people that want to use the path, that the 18th Avenue Trail starts on 16th Avenue Northeast. And there is a pretty well-worn desire path, I believe they call that, with a path that's already there since the one set of train tracks has been removed. So please try to, like I said, I believe this is up sooner than later for construction, which is really exciting and really happy. So I'm just here to comment on that to make sure that it gets across the finish line sooner than later. Also, kind of related to this subject, there's another gap in the 18th Avenue Trail that I don't necessarily believe is up on any project, but it deals with the city-owned maintenance yard on Washington and 18th. I know that there's a new maintenance yard facility on University and I believe 30 on 29th. So with this kind of freeing up of the old lot, it would be a prime opportunity for the city and Click to be able to take some of this land and dedicate it to the further extension of the 18th Avenue Trail. That would get us one more block without a detour. So I believe that is all that I have to comment about tonight, except for there's one more thing, I'm sorry, if I may. 3rd Avenue Northeast, there is a bike trail that was under much discussion of, at least in my world, of whether the city owned it or not. And I believe that Transportation and Public Works just recently issued an amendment to the AAA All Access network for bicycle, and they said that they were willing to consider this to be city property. So in the future, they're looking for funding for this for either maintenance or repair. So in the future, I would like to kind of direct the Click's attention to that 3rd Avenue Northeast. It's a trail between Central and Main. And finally, I'd just like to say thank you to everybody who serves on Click. I know it's a lot of time, so I've heard it's a lot of time, and it's very deep in minutia. So I appreciate every city volunteer and staff that works with Click to get these projects done.
Go check out the ducks.
Okay. Thank you, Chris. So let's, we have a couple of members who want to comment, and Amity Foster was first.
Sure, thanks, Jeff. Chris, I'm glad you brought up BP 06. It's literally like 2 blocks away from my apartment, and I'm also very happy that it's moving along. Especially under COVID, that trail is just like used daily, and it's unsafe, and this is going to complete a trail that desperately needs it. So I'm glad you spoke up in support of it. I think the other part that you're talking about though, Dan, is this the same as is that what you wrote about in your comment around the maintenance building?
Yes, that's the east side, the old east side maintenance garage at Washington and Washington and 18th. Yeah.
Okay, cool. Thanks.
Very good. So then we can go next to Steve Brandt.
Mr. Lindy, I just wanted to clarify here. What you're requesting is that a capital budget request be developed by city staff to complete the portion of the trail that is now essentially winding around in the area of the former city, or the property that's owned by the city, but it used to be the maintenance yard. You'd like to see that get on quick schedule?
Correct.
Okay. Thank you.
Thank you. And let's see. The two members who spoke have their hands raised yet, but anyone else? Anything further, Mr. Lindy? Thank you for participating. Then
No,
we had in
all.
queue.
Thank you
Thank you very much. Thank you. And then
Good
I
evening.
said,
Bye.
good, well, thank you. Then I said we'd check in with Mr. Jim Hagan, who attended a previous public input session. Jim Hagan, are you still on the call?
Hi, this is Jim.
Yes,
Can you hear
Jim,
me?
just can hear you fine.
Oh, great. Okay, thanks. Yeah, I want to just thank the CLIC members also. When I called in with questions and comments about WTR 12, I appreciated them being, taken with great seriousness and further inquiry. So thank you for that. I do have one question that I've realized that I probably should have asked before, which was in the request, the budget request. I think if I understand correctly, there's a place where the requesters identify how much money would be saved or additional money spent by being granted the request. Did I get that right?
There should be, and we can, staff will perhaps pull that up. At least we can see
Thanks
that.
so much. Yeah, thanks. So what I was curious about is, I was concerned about old water mains and the problems they caused for ratepayers, consumers. And I was in WTR 12, I couldn't understand. Well, first off, I couldn't, they don't list the projects as projects. It's just sort of one lump sum program of a budget. But I think there is a number for how much money would be saved, by doing these projects. And I just wondered, is there any breakdown of that to see how those numbers were calculated?
Robert is pulling that up now. Robert is pulling that up in our public facing. While he's doing that, here we go. So if you're asking, is there detail in the capital budget request that CLIC sees into the very, the minutia, as was said earlier, of, how many dollars and cents for, a new pipe or a relining, or how many hours of time per project. Well, I would say my experience, it doesn't get that I've been on Click nearly 25 years, and I don't think I've seen it that granular. And other members can comment, and then your comment about the, having kind of a component, a consolidated program versus gates and manholes and valves, and so in my service on Click, I've seen it either way. And for a while it'll be separated, and then maybe Click members will say, well, we'd like to see this as one big consolidated program, or some other stakeholder, and then they put it together, and then maybe a few years later that people say, well, we'd like to see this broken out more. So it has been, in my experience, I would argue that it has been, sort of cyclical, but maybe other members want to comment. Anyone like from our transportation, or maybe we can call on Steve again.
I think I'm not really prepared to go beyond what you said, Chair. John Bernstein would be the right person, and I think he had a conflict tonight.
Okay.
Yeah, thanks. If you'd like, I could just sort of offer one opinion about that.
Yeah, please do.
I think for WTR 12, in the report, the oral report, as I understand it, about half of the request is for linings, basically, or water main replacements or linings. And the other half is for, as you said, like miscellaneous hydrants and manholes and stuff like that. So no, I guess I would hardly expect anyone to look at that granular level of what manholes. But for half of the requested amount, I think it's for 3 or 4 discrete projects, like Fulton neighborhood project, which is, specific blocks. And every year it's about 3 or 4 discrete projects. They all have a name. They all have, they all get sort of lumped together for this roughly $3 to $5 million per year. But I just wondered if for that, it would seem useful to have at least the breakdown by projects, such as there are for street projects, where it actually gives the name of the street or the intersection or the bridge or something like that. Just because it is real easily divisible, and I don't think it's granular at all. Then for the thing about what is it saving, I mean, if that could be done, even just dividing it between sort of hydrant replacements and lining. My concern is that there's a lot of cost that is being spent in trying to nurse along these obsolete water mains, and it's cost borne by both the ratepayers and by the city in having to come out and do flushing and receive repeat phone calls, and then there are certain things that are not being done. For example, the director of the water division had said that, due to budget reasons or cost reasons, they don't notify consumers as would be ideal about when the flushing is going on, which would be useful because then they could prepare and not introduce so much sediment into their homes. But those are all cost things. I'm just thinking, if all of the costs were considered, it may make the infrastructure replacement look more worthwhile. So that's really my only comment about that.
Well, thank you. We'll duly noted, and typically water services projects are highly rated, and enterprise funded projects are looked at separately in their categories.
Oh, by category of the enterprise fund. So water is
Right.
one category for, yeah.
Wow.
But that was my impression from looking at it, but
Yeah.
that was, my basic concern is I don't think enough money is being spent on capital improvements in the water system. So we're all paying the price of that. It's kind of like we're having discussions about, well, how do you darn a sock that's already been darned 6 times before? At some point, it's, well, you throw it out and get a new sock is what you do. And spending so much time trying to keep something alive that's outlived its usefulness.
Well, thank you. Duly noted. Any other members have any comments? Not seeing anyone, so we don't have our transportation chair. As Steve mentioned, John is unable to attend tonight. I will say, Mr. Hagan, that at the time that the membrane filtration was being considered, the Water Services did create a citizen advisory committee for water services, and I had the opportunity to serve on that.
Oh.
And so that potentially could be something that, because your point about consumers not being notified because of the cost and the impact on residents to their own expensive appliances. Now the ultrafiltration membrane filtration process was based on risk perceived from Milwaukee, Wisconsin, where some people were sickened. A lot of people were sickened, and it was a very large investment. And so there was a sort of an experts and residents advisory body that was established for several years. And so Minneapolis is pretty known for having, I think, like 52 boards and commissions or more. I think it's larger now. It's one board or commission for every week of the year. But perhaps perhaps there'd be need for one more to be a consumer advisory for the water utility, because click scope is so wide.
Right. Yeah, I appreciate that. And I appreciate how much time you have been able to give to this one particular thing that I'm interested in and calling about. So I can understand that. Thank you for telling me about that other advisory committee meeting or other advisory board, because I can imagine that once this inventory is finished, which is underway for the water system, and we can identify how many blocks are negatively affected by the aged the system as ours is, we may be talking about a significant infrastructure overhaul that would warrant more serious study as opposed to the typical annual replacements done year by year, in which case I could certainly see the value of a board like you're talking about. So thanks for bringing that up.
My pleasure. Thank you for bringing your ideas forward and for participating in both of our input sessions. Are there any other residents attending who wish to comment tonight? Any other residents who wish to comment on capital budget requests before CLIC this year? Last call for any additional public input. Not seeing anyone or hearing anyone, seeing any hand raised. Anything further from staff present, Amelia Kruver or any other CLIC members?
Nope, I'm good. Thank you.
Okay, well, how about any other CLIC members? If not, then we will wind this up. So we'll close the public hearing. And unless any other CLIC members have anything. So Robert, with that, we've completed all items on the agenda for this meeting with the exception of the announcing that We do have 2 more weeks of our task force meetings. And so further information, probably best for residents to simply look at the Minneapolis LIM system for the Capital Long Range Improvement Committee. I will ask members and staff if there are any other matters to come before this meeting. I will check the chat.
Jeff,
Seeing no, yes.
I'm reminded of one thing that I forgot to do, which was just to say thank you so much to Justin. He is going to be starting 3 weeks of leave tomorrow, and I just wanted to thank him so much for all the help he's done. He's been such a positive influence on this group. So I just wanted to make sure I publicly said that before he leaves us tomorrow for a little while.
Absolutely. And on behalf of the CLIC members, as chair, I'll say thank you, Justin, for your fantastic work during the session, getting the CLIC session launched into space. We're on our way to the moon, land on the moon, come back. So anyway, thank you, Justin. Best wishes.
Thank you. Thank you, Amelia and Jeff and the entire committee. I look forward to coming back in a couple weeks and seeing the comments and the work on the CLIC report. So thank you all.
Okay. Very good. If not, without objection, I'll declare this meeting adjourned. And then we'll resume according to the schedule published in the LIM system as to the next CLIC meetings, which the next 2 weeks will be task force meetings. Thank you and good night.
Thank you.
Thank you. Good night.
Good night, everyone. Good night.
Thank you.